Hello, friends. How you doing today? So I wanted to do something that I haven't done yet, and really give you the full timeline of our first investment property. I've talked about it a bunch. If you've watched this channel for any length of time, you know our first property was on something called Norris Drive. You know that it starts out not particularly well, which we will rehash again in this presentation if you haven't seen it. But I thought I'd give you the full life cycle, right? We bought this, as you'll see in a moment, I think in very, very late 2002, and we will give you the full rundown here. So without further ado, let's share this PowerPoint so we can go over the full life cycle. Excellent. Here we go. Okay, so I just wanted to review the timeline for a couple of reasons. I do get a lot of questions. I've seen some other, people that I follow talk about their timelines with property and realized I had never done that. So I wanted to put this together in detail, probably be something I do for a lot of those first properties we got. I think it's important to do this because I will do my best to share with you what happened over time. You've heard me, if you followed me for any length of time, I talk about time being the key factor, right? It starts slow, but you've got to get started. So I wanted to make sure you could appreciate the timeline here. I would do my best to talk about price, rent, and cash flow because it's really those three factors when you hold for the long term, as I do and recommend you do as well, that are important. So I thought I would share with you the good and the bad. And as you'll see in my first example, I actually turned it into a something that I call an alligator. So you'll see that here in a minute, which of course an alligator is bad. I want to help people see what could possibly happen if you just got to 4 rentals, right? I'll share the story of 1. The idea, hey, is if you had 1 and you got to 4, you could sort of see how this would play out, and you could really make a difference in your life going forward. So here's the timeline, just as best I can. It's actually recorded. I checked it out. The date of our purchase was December 11th of 2002. So we bought this house for 107 grand even. Our plan was to rent it for $10.95, and our approximate cash flow was right around $200 a month. We quickly then after moved a tenant in. I believe that was around January 15th or so, but it was pretty soon after our close. Unfortunately, that didn't go very well. I won't go into the full details, but let's just say they moved in, never paid rent again, and needed to be evicted. So we had 90 days of no rent. We got their initial month and their deposit, but due to their family issues, they got divorced, separated, all of that, which was terrible. Another downside to us, besides all that lost rent, was we had to spend $15,000 in repairs after they moved out because there was, let's just say, some interesting damage done to the property. So that was unfortunate. We dealt with that. We got it all done. We actually moved in another tenant by the 1st, and happy to say that tenant stayed in the property, never missed a rent payment until we sold it or exchanged it years later. We'll see that here in a minute. Again, it does happen. You do move people in. You can do everything right as we did, but people have life events, and sometimes the best laid plans don't work out. So first one didn't work out. It was terrible to have to spend that $15K extra that we didn't plan for. It frankly took away from us buying another one quickly, so it was painful. But once we moved the new tenant in, it was off to the running, and we started seeing cash flow. Until, as you'll see in a minute, we did a refinance. So about a year later, I think it was 13 months after that tenant moved in, we did a refinance, and the value had jumped to 180 grand. So 18 months, right? This was during the last seller's market. Prices were on fire and getting even higher, as you'll see in a minute. So we pulled out about $60,000 in cash, tax-free, because the cash out refinance is not taxed. Unfortunately, and again, I didn't know any different in the beginning, I turned a property that was producing pretty consistently $200 a month positive into a $200 negative best case, right? If there were no expenses, no broken windows or clogged toilets, I would lose 200 a month. That was my starting point, and it would only get worse from there. So that hurt every month. That's where I got the idea of an alligator. Nobody wants an alligator. Don't over leverage. None of these things, because it hurt every single month. Clearly a mistake. The only thing I can say with any kind of positive thing is we used that 60 grand to buy more real estate that did cash flow. So maybe it was net, positive for us, but I will never do that again. I don't care. I should have taken out less money, and I would have been much happier for it. A lot of people would turn a positive into negative and then spend the 60K, which is horrible. And that's, what caused a lot of downfalls in the last cycle. Then we sold it, or technically exchanged it. So we own this property not even 3 years, right? We bought December 11th and we sold 11/4 of 2005. So not even a full 3 years, just shy of 3 full years. We sold it for $264. The thing that's interesting there is it rented for $1,095. So the same amount we had back in 2002, there's the same rent in 2005. Could the rent have gone up $50? Maybe. We had the same tenant, as I said, for a better part of 2 years, so we didn't raise rents. So, this worked out for us. I do know that, unfortunately, the individual who did purchase this ended up losing it later through foreclosure because it doesn't cash flow, right? It cash flowed great at 107. It could have cash flowed, maybe at 180, maybe, but it doesn't cash flow at 264 unless you're putting a lot down. And unfortunately, this individual was doing one of the liar loans of the day that were very popular in 05. So what did we do? So we closed on a 5-plex about a month later. We moved into, it was a 5-plex, all 1-1, so small. I think they're like 750 square feet, maybe 700. I'm not exactly sure. It's been a while since I've been inside them. At the time, rents were really simple, $500 each, $2,500. So again, it's interesting to see here that we, our rent more than doubled. And what we did is we turned a negative $200 a month. Remember, that's what we were having on Norris Drive before we sold it because I took out too much cash. We turned that negative 200 into a positive 800. So really $1,000 swing by doing this 1031 exchange. We still own this property today. I'm happy to say rents have gone up substantially. Rents are now over $700 and probably could be raised again. So it's about $3,700. It's a little bit over that. I just rounded down. Cash flow went from about $800 a month to over $1,700 a month. And very happy to own this. It all started with Norris Drive. We did put about $20,000 down into Norris. We did take $60,000 out, although it turned negative. And then we moved all the equity into this 5 units that is producing $1,750 a month. The interesting thing about this 5 units is, as you saw, we had no money left in Norris Drive. Norris Drive actually paid us. But now that negative is, it's an infinite return because we have the equity sitting in the 5-plex that now is adding over $1,700 a month of cash flow. So happy to still own that property. Something else we're going to do because rates are going low. We are likely going to refinance this property, probably just recast the debt. Again, I don't want the cash. I don't need the cash from a cash out refi, but if I can recast the debt, which means take the term out again and then lower the rate substantially. I haven't run the numbers. I just built it for this slide. I know that cash flow will go over $2,000 a month by doing that. So probably more like $2,250, maybe even $2,500, depending on what we do with rate and term and things of that nature. So the idea here is Norris Drive. We started with $20,000 down. We ended up taking $60,000 out. We then moved the remaining equity into a 5-unit building. And now, we're currently getting over $1,700 in cash, positive cash flow with eyes on increasing that to over $2,000. So pretty good. Again, notice the time, right? Started in 02 and now it's 2019 and we're talking about doing something in 2020. So 18-year timeline. So again, you have to get started, right? This doesn't start unless you are an owner. And obviously being a landlord and having somebody else pay for your mortgage is awesome. Leaving a little extra and positive cash flow is extra awesome, if you know what I mean. But that's what we try to do. Don't over leverage just because you can. I've been very clear that I made that mistake on this property specifically. Sometimes the banks really want to lend money, and they will do interesting things. But you, as the borrower, can always say no or reduce the amount so that you stay positive. Right? Do not create alligator properties. When the market's overpriced, it doesn't hurt to reposition. We did this successfully, selling what was clearly an overpriced house for $264 and moving that equity into a 5-unit building with rents substantially higher. So look to do that when it's appropriate. And of course, you can always refi debt to increase cash flow. You know, maybe it's rate, maybe it's term, right? These are all things you can look to. Again, you need to let time go by, right? You can't, refi debt next year. But 10 years down the line, 15, these are things that are all possible to do. And again, holding for the long term is the strategy. One rental at a time is the strategy. These are the things that need to happen in order to get there. It's it's just slow process, but you can get there. So again, thank you. Do me a favor, if you're still watching this, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, comment if you have a question. I haven't got a subscriber question in a while, so let me know. And do me one more favor. If you happen to like these videos, share them around. We need to grow the channel. I love helping people, and I really appreciate everything y'all are doing for me. All right, have a great day. Take care.